Okay, welcome to the annual town meeting. Town meetings have been conducted since the town was established in 1742. This meeting is now officially open. Jim Majori, can I ask you to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, Jim. Okay, some introductions. Supervisors of the checklist are Jane Morse, Kevin Murphy, and Joanne Knox. If you have not checked in yet, please do so in the back of the room, and they will give you this little blue card. Town clerk and tax collector is Susan Buchanan. Select board members are Jim Majori, Jonathan Panett, and James Sununu. Chair of the budget committee is Rick Stanton. Members that we have here today are Larry Miller, Tom Von Jess, Lisa Gagalis, and Andrew Rauchi. Town administrator is Mike Tully, finance director Ryan Cornwell. We have Fire Chief Jason LaJoy, DPW Director John Hubbard, Rick Milner's here. I'm your moderator, Bobby Burns. Thanks to John Savastano, Troy Claderis, and David O'Connor for broadcasting today, and thanks to Stu Spooner for doing the setup. Rick, did you open a budget committee meeting?
I'd like to open the budget committee. Thank you, Madam Moderator, this time, and we also have James Sununu as a member of the budget committee.
The budget committee meeting was opened. And Jonathan, would you like to open a select board meeting?
I am officially opening up the select board meeting.
Okay, great. Thank you. Deliberative session is our opportunity to meet as a legislative body. This is the gathering of all registered voters who wish to participate. This is not a select board meeting nor a budget meeting, though, as you've just seen, they have both opened concurrent sessions. Select board budget committee members are participating as registered voters, just as you and I. This is your meeting. As such, if you don't understand something or need clarification, raise your hand and ask me. I can't stress this enough. This is your opportunity to ask questions and make changes to the warrant articles. Under our form of town meeting, we deliberate and possibly amend articles. Actual voting on the warrant by casting official ballots will be on Tuesday, March 12th, here at the school from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. We are limited in what we may do today. We may amend or modify, but not change the subject matter of any article. By law, some of the articles cannot be amended or modified, such as the zoning articles. Discussion will be limited to what we can do at this meeting today. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't ask if you are not sure. We will not vote to put any article on the warrant. All articles, either as is or amended, will appear on the official ballot. Each article will be projected on screen. The article will be moved to the floor and seconded. I will then recognize someone to provide a brief explanation of the article. Then others will be allowed to speak. Some basic rules. This is a meeting of registered voters. Non-voters will generally not be allowed to speak. Town staff who are not registered voters may be asked to speak for purposes of providing information or clarification. Please come up to the microphone to speak. Lining up behind the person speaking moves things along. If you are unable to come to the microphone, let me know and we'll bring it to you. Show your voter card and please state your full name for the minutes. Please address all comments and questions to me. One person has the floor at a time. Discussion between parties will not be allowed. Once you have made your comment or asked your question, I ask that you yield to the next person speaking. If you are proposing an amendment, have it ready in writing. This ensures that we record it properly. We will discuss only one amendment at a time. This simply ensures that we keep everything straight. Please let others speak before speaking a second time. Please try to limit your comments to a few questions. And if someone else has already made your point, think about skipping it. I can't stress this one enough. Everyone wants what they believe is best for the town. You don't have to agree, just be polite. Remember, all articles or amendments to an article can be reconsidered at any time unless a vote is taken to restrict reconsideration. Once reconsideration is restricted, the article cannot be reopened. The following individuals are on the ballot: If you're here today and running for office, if you can just raise your hand or stand up. We have one select board position, 3-year term. Brendan Fennell is running, Henry Marsh, and Jonathan Panett. We have one town moderator for a 2-year term. That would be me. No one else seems to want it. One town treasurer, 1-year term, Angela Blattis. One supervisor of the checklist, 6-year term, Kevin Murphy. One library trustee, 3-year term, Susan Leonardi. 2 budget committee members, 3-year terms, Janet Larson, Paul Martino, Sean Dion, and Jerry Ganazzo. 1 budget committee member, 1-year term, Anne Marie Banfield, Robert Benevetto, and Andrew Rauchi. 1 trustee of the cemeteries, 3-year term, Frank Ferraro. 2 planning board members, 3-year term, Jennifer Kotzen, Kirsten Larson Schultz, Phil Wilson, and Valerie Gamache. Wait, there's more. 1 planning board member, 1-year term, Oriana Allen, Catherine Rauchi, and John Soleil. 2 water commissioners, 3-year term, Donna McKay, Jay Shabbat. 1 zoning board of adjustment member, 3-year term, Jonathan Howe. 1 trustee of the trust funds, 3-year term, Tori Marsh and Mary Lambert. Thank you all for agreeing to run this year. It's nice to see so many positions contested. Okay, let's start with the zoning articles. Remember, zoning articles can be discussed but cannot be amended. Can I have a motion to move Article 2 to the floor?
I'll make a motion to move Article 2 to the floor. Second.
Phil, would you mind discussing Article 2?
Do I need to hold my card up?
No, that's okay.
Okay. Article 2, which is the first of the 3 zoning amendments, has a simple purpose. It's to help people who own antique barns in a traditional New England configuration to preserve those barns by permitting them to put an accessory dwelling unit in it, which would allow them both to renovate it to make it habitable, and also to perhaps make it generate some income for them. The conventional structure of farms in New England is often referred to, and in fact there's a book about it, which is called Big House, Little House, Back House, Barn. And if you think about what that implies, a big house with a smaller house behind it and another one, they're all connected, you'll notice that there are lots of those around, not only Northampton, but all New Hampshire. So the accessory dwelling unit provision existing in the zoning ordinance says that a building has to be connected to the principal structure, and many of these big house, little house, back house, barn configurations aren't, they are connected, but they are not attached. That is, they don't share a wall between the barn and the living space. This exempts them from that requirement so that anybody who has one of these conventional and historic configurations is permitted to have an accessory dwelling unit.
Any comments or questions on Article 2?
Kirsten Larson Schultz. Just so that I can understand exactly why this ordinance is needed, I'm wondering how many applications would have fallen under this proposed Article 2 this past year. And then I'd also like to know, currently there's pending legislation, HB 1291, that would broaden what we can do with ADUs. So I'd like to know, if HB 1291 passes, how would this impact this proposed ordinance as well as our others related to ADUs? Thank you.
As far as I know, we have not had any application from anybody who has one of these structures who wants to put an ADU in it. If anybody else from the planning board can remember one, please. But we have had people express an interest in it. In fact, if I recall correctly, what generated our interest in considering this was a comment somebody made to you, Nancy, after the last deliberative session or the last second thing. So that was it. Now, with respect to 1291, I've read it, read Mr. Majori's comments about it. I don't think it will have any effect on this, although I guess if I try to play judge applying the new law, I would say that it would probably allow somebody who had one of these structures to have the ADU, even though we passed this. But we don't know whether 1291 is going to be passed or not. So,
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions on this? Phil, I'm going to keep you here because you're going to do the next one.
I thought I'd just get back in case somebody wants to raise it up.
Okay, article moves to the ballot as written. Can we have a motion to move Article 3 to the floor?
I move to put Article 3 on the floor.
Second.
Okay, Phil.
This is really a pretty simple and straightforward clarification of the ordinance that was brought to our attention by the Planning and Zoning Administrator, and it resulted from the fact that people have come to him and said, I want to build a second house on my lot, and the zoning ordinance says it's single-family, it's zoned for single-family residence, but each of the two houses is going to be a single-family residence, so why can't I have two of them? And I think it is fairly common sense, and I see the moderator scratching her head saying, what are you talking about?
You were right, that's what I was saying.
But the normal understanding of zone for single-family residence refers not only to a single-family lot, it refers to one residence on the lot, and the language of this simply makes that, I hope, crystal clear. Rick will find out the first time somebody comes in and say, wait a minute, I still don't think of it. Anyway, the point is to make it very clear that single-family residence zoning means that you have one house on the lot.
Okay, any comments or questions on this? Kirsten, come on up.
Okay, so I'm going to continue on the same theme so that I understand why this proposed ordinance is needed. How would this impact ADUs if passed?
Won't impact ADUs at all. It'll only make it easier for the town planning and zoning administrator to explain that you can only build one house, and if you want to build an ADU, it has to comply with the ADU ordinance, whatever that happens to be at the time.
Okay, any other comments or questions? Okay, Article 3 moves to the ballot as written. Can I have a motion for Article 4?
Madam Moderator, I move Article 4 to the floor.
Second.
Phil?
This is another amendment that was proposed largely to help the planning and zoning administration in town. We have for several years, at least as long as I've been on the board, often confronted an issue where an application comes in and you look at the table of permitted uses and special exceptions in our zoning ordinance, and whatever the specific proposal is, it's not listed there. So then the planning and zoning administrator, the building inspector have to say, well, what is this? Is this a change of use? Is this not a permitted use? Does it have to go to the ZBA? Does it go to the planning board? What happens to it? Good example of this was the first proposal for a public storage facility, and I think, as I recall, it's the one up on the very north end of Route 1. And the ZBA, they came to the ZBA because we didn't have public storage facilities listed as a permitted use. The ZBA made the ruling that it fell under retail use. And that's kind of been the practice when something unusual comes in. If you can squeeze it under retail, you put it there or something. So what essentially, I mean, I credit Rick with recommending these. We have added some permitted uses. We have added definitions of, for example, professional service. We've got warehousing and things like that, so that it'll be a little clearer, hopefully much clearer, to both applicants and to the boards about what needs to be done when an application comes in. It's as far as I can remember, there wasn't anything that we really wanted to change. We just wanted to clarify. Is that right, Rick? Yeah.
Okay, any comments or questions? Kirsten?
Kirsten Larson Schultz. For my quest to understand why this is needed, this ordinance, I do have a couple of questions. One is, by joining together retail and professional services, I'm wondering the impact on a new business. If previously there was a retail in a business and then a new business comes in and wants to do professional services, does that mean that they would only need a change of name, simple change of name form, or would they still need a change of use? And then I'd also like to know some examples of accessory uses and why that was removed. Thank you.
The first of the questions, there is no change of name application as far as I know. Rick? It's change of tenant, I think is what
Correct.
Kirsten
It would
means.
be change of tenant, change of business with the
Yeah.
building department.
And the lumping of the two together would mean, my interpretation would be, ZBA is responsible for interpreting the zoning ordinance, the planning board applies it. Yeah, I would apply it in the sense that if you have something that's obviously a retail store, say a grocery store, and then somebody comes in and says they want to put a professional service, fill it up with an Aspen Dental or something like that, because they're lumped together, I would say you wouldn't have to go for a change of use. It would be a change of tenants, because it falls under one permitted use in the zoning ordinance.
Okay, oh, the other
I
question
don't
was...
want to take the job away from the ZBA. The ZBA is not here. I always think of Rick as the ZBA, so I'll always point to him.
And the answer about accessory uses being removed?
Larry's here. Larry, can't see anything in the sun. Larry.
Phil, one last question was around accessory uses being removed.
Accessory uses, I think the whole point is that, generally speaking, a use that is accessory to a primary use is fairly obvious, and therefore there's no need to try to specify them. They would clearly be allowed. I mean, I'm trying to think of an example. If let's say an electrical service company has a shop where they take some of their work, they would have to have a kind of store room where they store parts and things like that. That's an accessory use, and sometimes we've had concerns about, people have said, well, is that permitted or not? But that was something that we're not trying to eliminate accessory uses.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Sure, you can do a follow-up.
I'm not quite sure that I'm clear. You're saying that if a business wants an accessory use, then even if we strike this, they'd still be able to use an extra building for accessory use? Is that correct?
Did you say use an extra building?
Or whatever your explanation was.
Yeah, whatever my explanation was. Okay, I'll just say whatever my explanation was. Is that no? Seriously, no. It means that if a business comes in, if a counter a company that mills granite to make counters for kitchens and installs them, and they have a sales room where people come in, they look at the kind of granite, and they say what they want. Then they have an accessory use. They've got to grind the granite in the back room. It's either an accessory use that can be seen as essential to their conducting their business, or it ought to be treated as a separate application. And I don't recall we've really had too much trouble with that.
Okay.
I can't recall any quibbles about it, actually.
Frank, did you have another question? I saw your hand go up.
Frank Ferraro. This is more a general comment about zoning articles, and Northampton's not unique in this, that the zoning article that appears on the ballot is like that. It's very short. So I wanted to see what the actual change would be for each of these articles, and I couldn't find it on the website. So I asked a planning board member, and that person directed me to the minutes of a meeting in December, and all of that information was there. So I'd like to request that in the future, not that these articles have to be made pages long, but somewhere on the planning board website, it be made clear and easily accessible, the lengthy red line of what would be accepted. And as I said, maybe I just couldn't find it, but when I asked about it, I was directed to the minutes of a meeting. So that's just a request.
Rick, you have those in your office available for public,
I
right?
have some copies today, but they are available on the website. There is a link on the cover page or home page. The blue boxes has planning and zoning legal notices. It's there. It's also a green box link on the planning board page, the zoning board page, and the planning and zoning department page. So there's 4 links to these documents.
All right, well,
on there. And if you'd like, I'll give you.
no, I got it, thanks to the planning board member. And, well, it's good to know. I did a pretty thorough search, and I guess I just missed that, because I was looking for something.
We could have missed you by a day. You might have looked the day before we did it.
Yeah, I was looking for something that said warrant articles, and it was nothing like that. Thank you.
Frank, I will also say that last year, Rick provided those full copies at Election Day. So if someone had a question when voting, they can go and take a look at those, and they will be available again on voting day.
Well, that's good, except
I know, but
trying to read 2 pages of
I agree.
a thing on Election Day before you go in to vote.
I'm
Is
just
that-
adding that because
Thank
some
you.
people come in
Okay.
and never see it until then, so we have that available then, too.
I know. Thank you.
Okay, so any other questions on that? Article 4 moves to the ballot. Now we'll move on to... What? Sorry, Larry.
May I move that we restrict further consideration of Article 1 through 4?
1 through 3, we haven't talked about 4 yet.
That was 4.
We did? Oh, 4. We did, you're right, sorry, take it back. Yes, you can.
I so moved.
Is there a second?
Madam Moderator, point of order.
Yep.
Since this legislative body can't make any changes to it,
That's why I
motion to-
didn't ask for it.
Yeah.
But since someone has made a motion, we will still go through with that. First of all, does everyone know what restricting reconsideration is? I'm going to assume that's a yes. Okay, so is everyone in favor of restricting reconsideration of Articles 1 through 4? It's good practice raising your hands. Anyone against it? Okay, that motion to restrict reconsideration passes. Moving on to Article 5, the
Sorry.
operating budget. Go ahead.
I'll move Article 5 to the floor.
Second.
Okay, Mike, are you going to speak to this article?
I am, Madam Moderator. The 2024 operating budget was $8,980,000. The
Can everyone hear Mike?
How's that, better?
No.
How's this, better?
Better.
The 2024 operating budget was $8,980,000. The draft fiscal year 25 budget would be $9,641,000, a difference of $661,000 or 7.37%. More importantly, though, the operating budget of $8,980,000 compared to the default budget, which is last year's approved budget plus or minus one-time expenses and contractual items. The difference to that is 5.7% or $512,000. So realistically, the way you can look at that is $512,000 is stuff that we've already agreed to and passed through past town meetings. And that $512,000 breaks down into 3 distinct categories. That's health insurance increases at $405,000, hydrant fees at $83,000, and property liability and workman's comp at $20,000. And I'll talk a little bit about health insurance. The board made decisions about 1.5 years, 2 years ago that changed health insurance plans, and the town has saved a significant amount of money. That being said, our increase this year was 25%. We immediately went out and tried to bid out health insurance to 2 different companies to try to lower those costs, and we couldn't even get the companies to even work with us to bid. They looked at our claims and the amount of employees and said, we're not going to be able to beat the health trust, so we're not even going to spend our time on it. So when we look at those 3 issues of health insurance, hydrant fees, and property liability, and you minus that off from what the budget's going up, it's really about a 1.58% increase, or $149,659. So where do those changes come from? Rick, where do those changes come from? And executive line, $7,690, which is increase in salaries, overtime, FICA, Medicare, and retirement. Town clerk and elections, a savings of $12,177, which is a bit of a reduction in motor vehicle registration expenses, mortgage research, dues and subscriptions, et cetera. Financial administration, $5,913, which is increase in salaries, FICA, Medicare, and retirement, and also audit fees. Data processing, increase in license and contract services from the IT management services, which is PCG, and that's $21,879. Property valuation, savings of $500, assessing services down. Legal expenses, $20,000, increase in legal expenses related to general matters, labor negotiations, and land use and abatements. Personnel administration, just over $24,000, increase in compensation, salary increases, and health insurance. Planning and zoning, $4,852. There's increase in salaries, FICA, Medicare, retirement, and also a little bit of an increase in Rockingham planning dues. General government buildings of $22,359. Salaries, FICA, Medicare, water, Dearborn Park maintenance, partially offset by custodial supplies. Cemeteries, $5,423. There's some increase in salaries there. Equipment maintenance and general maintenance. Insurance, increase in workers' comp. We talked about that. Property liability of $20,307. Associations and advertising for NHMA dues are up $352. Police, $175,000 increase in salaries, mostly pushed by health insurance, FICA, Medicare, retirement, et cetera. Fire rescue, same thing, $170,000, mostly by health insurance, with certainly a few other things involved in that budget. Code enforcement, $6,476, increase in salaries, FICA, Medicare, retirement. Emergency management, reduction in FICA, Medicare for retirement contributions and training overtime of $248. Highways and streets, $50,000, increase in salaries, on-call pay, overtime, health insurance, pavement marking, et cetera. Brush disposal, an increase of $807 for salaries and Medicare. Solid waste disposal, $12,520. These are tipping fees and bulky waste disposal fees. We've been over these. They've been going up in the last few years, and Director Hubbard has stated that I wouldn't expect them to go down anytime soon. Recycling, $1,600, increase in salaries, FICA, Medicare, heating, oil, and natural gas. Water services, increase in distributions for hydrants of $83,000. Unfortunately, we've seen these increases go through for hydrants in the last few years, and our experience at the state arguing these things has not been positive. Parks and Recreation, savings of $12,340, reduction in salaries, FICA, Medicare, et cetera.
Debt service of $26,000, which was principal debt service for our bonds. Interest savings of $18,000. And then the Northampton Public Library at $44,000 for increase of salaries, health insurance, FICA, Medicare, et cetera. Rick? So this is just a little bit of a breakdown pie chart of where your money goes in your budget. And I don't think it surprises anybody to see that public safety wins with $3.7 million at 39%. We then move over to health insurance and public works, general government, and then a few other lines throughout that. But definitely public service employees is where your money goes. I will be happy to answer any questions with Ryan if any residents have any questions more in depth about the budget process.
Okay, comments and questions related to the budget? Kathy?
Kathleen Kilgore, 220 Atlantic Avenue. In regards to the legal line, I'm Miss Moderator, sorry, this is your meeting. I have a question in regards to the fact that the fiscal year-end 2023 expenditures were $83,007. That's significantly up from fiscal year 22. And then I see the proposed budget for fiscal year 2025 being only for $54,000. And I was just wondering why you feel that it's a spike for 2023 and you don't anticipate 2025 requiring the same amount of legal expense budgeted.
Everybody hear me?
Yep.
All right. So typically what we do is, although you see, specifically, I believe you're referring to the general legal line, although you see that at $83,000, there was a decent amount of expenditure within that was related to the cell tower that we didn't see to be recurring, although there are some other costs that have increased in the other legal lines. We didn't see it necessary to increase the budget for general legal up to that amount. More or less what we ended up deciding was that the column you'd see in green, which is the average expenditures over the last 3 years, were a bit more of a metric than just what occurred in FY23. So although I'm sure there are some other legal costs that we're incurring now that quite possibly may cause a little bit of an issue in next year, we didn't think it was necessary to be that aggressive and increase the amount up to $80,000. So again, we try to go more or less off of the average of the last 3 years. So that's why you see, I believe it's 89,000 and change is the average across all the legal lines, and that's basically what we found to be the most appropriate metric and how we arrived at the $90,000 in this particular year. So I hope that helped to explain.
Okay, any other questions? Janet, come on up.
Hi, I'm Janet Larson. I was just wondering,
Can everyone hear Janet?
Janet Larson. I was just wondering how much unexpected revenue the town received from the taxes this year related to the reassessment of property. And then I was wondering where the surplus of that tax money would go into this next budget coming up and how it gets divided among the cost centers,
Was there any surplus?
if it does.
So the actual tax, when a revaluation is done, that's built into the tax rate. So there isn't anything that's unexpected. Based on the valuation and the previous approved budget, it's then determined what needs to be raised based on that valuation. So the only time you would have unexpected tax revenue would basically be if something ended up in lien from prior years and then you were able to collect on it in a future year. whereas what's being billed specifically, that original budget is reduced by other revenue streams, such as motor vehicle, et cetera, which is then how we arrive to what needs to be raised through taxation at the new valuation. So I'm not sure if I'm not fully understanding, but typically the only unanticipated revenue from taxation would be unpaid liens or previously deferred taxes that we were then able to capture.
So basically, you knew what the tax revenue would be before you planned the budget for next year, is what you're saying? Those numbers came in before you put this budget together for next year? So you would know how much money you had
No.
to work with?
No, it works in reverse. The budget is set, and then the tax rate is determined
By the budget?
by the budget, by what's being raised, and then looking at also the other additional revenues that might be coming in, like car registrations. And so you work with DRA to come up with that calculation to determine how much property tax revenue we need to raise to meet that approved budget.
And that's when the state actually puts a cap on towns as far as what percentage they can use of that? And when they figure out, the DRA figures out what the tax rate can be?
Yes, then
Yeah.
agreed, the tax collector is then bound by
By the
a
state.
percentage plus or minus on that amount, of which C. Buchanan provides a tax summary report, a warrant, property tax verification form, I believe, is the other one, that we submit to the DRA, that confirms to the DRA that we have actually committed taxes within the percentage that they've allowed.
Can you just tell people what DRA stands for, since many people are learning about how the process works?
Absolutely. It's the New Hampshire Department of Revenue Administration.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments or questions in relation to the budget? Okay, and Janet, it's going to be related to the budget, right? Okay.
I thought that was, sorry.
Sorry, no, that was,
I just
that's
was
okay.
curious where the MRI expense for the year ends up in the budget, specifically expenses paid to MRI throughout the year. Is it through different cost centers?
So the vast majority of the costs that we pay to MRI for their services is for the general assessing services, which would be under property valuation 4152.
I think they also provided a lot of HR support this year, if I'm remembering correctly.
Well, there are some other MRI costs that we incur that, let's say, in the event there are abatements being filed, they possibly would have to work with other appraisers.
I was thinking more along the lines of when we were recruiting and hiring police for our
Correct. They do also
town.
have, they do also, you're right, in other cases, either provide temporary placement and also can assist with actually filling positions, maybe advertising, some of the background work. I think
What
may
cost center or line item would that be in the budget?
So some
Just
of that would
curious.
go through legal. In the case where they do temporary placement, that would basically be paid through the salary line. You know, for example, temporary placement of a police chief that would have occurred last year, that would have been paid through the previously approved salary line. So we try very much to make sure that we're accounting for those costs in the most appropriate cost center to which they're related. So
Okay.
to your point, I was initially thinking of assessing services as their primary, although you're right, they have provided.
It's just hard if you can't determine what's in the line item, so thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions?
Ms. Moderator, Kathleen Kilgore, 220 Atlantic. Can someone tell me how much of a percentage the town employees pay towards their insurance costs, their medical insurance?
Well, you guys know the numbers better than me. Go ahead.
Are you referring to non-union?
Excuse me?
Non-union?
Actually, I'd like to hear all of them,
Okay.
because they all impact the budget.
Yep. Non-union are 90/10 for health insurance and dental.
Okay.
Do-
Sorry.
Go ahead. I was going to go
Yeah,
one at a time,
yeah.
so I thought you might have questions.
I'd like to
about
add a
that.
question to that part of it.
Yep.
So how many years has it been 90/10?
Yeah, probably 10 years.
Okay, thank you.
If you're looking for, so in this budget, although some of these things obviously are being renegotiated,
Yep.
in this budget, the police union was 8614,
Okay.
and the fire, 8812. And I know within the fire contract that has been renegotiated, I believe down to 90/10 because of the plan that we were changed to, a smaller premium. So part of their negotiation, they negotiated that down back to 90/10.
Is there a change in, I know that there's the police department is back up, CBA is back up on the warrant this year too. Has there been proposed change to their contributions?
No. And I'm not positive, I'm not familiar with the library budget, but do you know what the library employees are percentage-wise?
I'm not.
Thought you might know because you're a trustee.
Yeah.
I think it's 90/10, but I'm not 100% sure.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other comments or questions in relation to budget?
Yep, I have another one if there's nobody else.
Go ahead, Cal.
This fall, the Select Board and the Town Administrator entered into agreement that our Town Administrator can work in Newcastle part-time.
Okay, I'm going to ask the question. I'm going to stop you right now and say that I'm just going to give a warning that any individual personnel questions are not appropriate here. If it's a budget-related question to a line item, that's fine.
I was going to relate it to a budget line item. My first question was, do you anticipate this arrangement to move into 2025?
Okay, so how does that relate to a budget question?
Okay. I see, as reported on the Newcastle Town website, the town administrator is working 2 full days for the town of Newcastle, Tuesdays and Thursdays, 8 to 4. Does this budget that we have for fiscal 2025 reflect the reduced hours a town administrator is working for our town?
There are no reduced hours for the town administrator for the town of Northampton.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions related to the budget? Okay.
Madam Moderator,
Oh, sorry, Larry.
I move to restrict further consideration of this article.
Okay, is there a second?
Second?
All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay, one opposed. Motion passes.
I'd like to move, sorry.
Go ahead, moving to
I'd like to
Article
move-
6. Go
I'd like
ahead.
to move Article 6, the proposed fire department collective bargaining agreement, to the floor.
Oh, second. Sorry.
Okay. James, are you going to speak to this article?
I am. This is a proposed collective bargaining agreement with our firefighters union. This is a 3-year agreement to replace the agreement that expires at the end of this fiscal year. We have cost items in here that reflect the total cost, estimated cost increases for each year in the contract. Those relate to wages, retirement, healthcare, and all the other costs that are included in that negotiated contract versus if they were to go forward with no contract. The most notable change in this contract, I think, is moving to an annual step system for our firefighters. When we looked at other contracts, probably about a dozen contracts for other towns, one thing that stood out is that while we have very competitive starting pay for our firefighters, when they enter the service as initial employees. We found that they quickly fall behind other departments. We do not have an annual, what I would refer to as an experiential increase, an increase that is over and above the cost of living adjustment in the contract on an annual basis. We have them every 3, 6, 10, and 15 years. And so what happens is those, without those increases, where other departments have an annual step increase for employees, our experienced employees are quickly falling behind their comparable firefighters with comparable experience in other departments. So that makes it very difficult for us competitively. The labor market is increasingly challenging in all industries, but particularly in public safety. The number of high-quality candidates who are seeking to enter the fire service and the police service these days is very, very low. There's a ton of competition between departments. Virtually every department we know of around here has multiple openings, and so we're all competing for the same pool of qualified candidates. We've had instances where we've had fire chiefs trying to poach our firefighters right in front of our chief. So it's getting pretty bold. So we feel it's important to have a contract that's competitive, especially in retaining experienced officers. So this adds a annual step system that is a 1.25% annual increase in addition to the cost of living increase that is in the contract, and that cost of living increase is tied to inflation. We've also had some adjustments to holiday pay to normalize that with what we have with our police department. We have some additional what we call adders. These are small salary increases of 1% for different certifications that our firefighters get. This is obviously to incentivize them to go through professional development and increase their skill set, which is a benefit to us as a department. We've raised the health insurance buyouts that we offer to firefighters. This is when a firefighter chooses not to take the health insurance plan because they have insurance available to them through a spouse or another family member. By increasing the dollars we offer to that buyout, it makes it more attractive for someone to take that if they do have that option available to them. And that's given the large increases in health insurance premiums, that is a significant savings to us if we have additional firefighters take that buyout versus paying the cost of the plan for that employee. We have added short-term disability insurance, which is already provided to other town employees and the PD. That was lacking in this contract. We've increased uniform allowances by a little bit, given the cost of the increased cost of these items for our firefighters. Let's see here. We have capped professional leave at the current budget funding level. We have added a small longevity stipend to firefighters who stay with the department. Again, this is to keep people long-term. It's much more cost-effective for us to retain a firefighter than to have to fill an opening. And by retaining those and not having openings that might last several months and having to fill those with new officers that need more training, we can provide better service to our citizens. We have added an option to bring in firefighters at a higher than entry-level pay scale if they are experienced. So our chief can choose to make an offer to an experienced firefighter who might be coming from another department and place them at a more competitive pay scale versus having to have them start all over at the first step of the pay scale. And we've added a referral bonus that would provide a bonus to a current employee who refers an experienced firefighter to the department who ends up getting hired and passing through the probationary period. So we think this is a very attractive contract and necessary contract to maintain the competitiveness of our department versus other departments. As I said, we're seeing very significant competition from other departments. Given the size of our department, having any openings significantly affects our ability to provide the kind of service that the town has indicated that they want by structuring the department the way they have with the number of positions they have. So we think it's very important to pass this contract and continue to give our department the opportunity to be fully staffed and provide the service that the town would like.
Okay, any comments or questions on the collective bargaining agreement? Okay, with no comments or questions, we'll be moving Article 6 to the ballot.
Make a motion to restrict reconsideration?
Second.
All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay, passes unanimously. And I'd just like to note, I don't know how I missed him, but Chief Labarge is also here today as we move on to Article 7, the revised Police and Highway Department Collective Bargaining Agreement. Motion to move that to the floor.
I'll move Article 7 to the floor.
Second.
James?
Yep. This is the second of our contract-related warrant articles. This is for our police union. You see that this is just a one-year cost increase. This is not a complete bargaining agreement. We're entering into the third year of this agreement, and this warrant article is to adjust the salary scale within our police contract for the remainder of this contract period. I think folks are pretty well aware that we had a significant exodus of police officers last year, or late 2022, time flies. And when that happened early into the beginning of the contract we had negotiated with the police department, and it became clear that officers were largely unhappy about the salary scale that was in that contract. After we had a number of departures, we met with the entire department and discuss with them all the issues that they had, because we wanted to make sure that we were addressing needs that we might not be aware of. And so we asked those officers to come back to us and provide a list of all the issues they had that they would like us to address to prevent further attrition of our police officers. And they came back to us with one item, that was wages. They felt that the wages were falling significantly behind what were in other departments. As I noted before, there are openings in public safety departments virtually everywhere. There's huge competition for officers. Some departments are paying $10,000 or even $20,000 bonuses, sign-on bonuses for experienced officers. And that was the issue that our officers felt needed to be addressed. So within the budget that was existing, we were able to, because we had some vacancies and some funds in the budget, we were able to provide our officers a raise that we negotiated with them. But to carry that raise into the next fiscal year, we need to have this on as a warrant article. So this is a wage increase that representing the wages, retirement, and other costs associated with wages, but it doesn't affect any of the other items in the collective bargaining agreement. We also agreed to provide, again, a $2,000 referral bonus to officers who refer a qualified candidate who becomes a full-time police officer in the department. So we think this makes us competitive. It doesn't put us at the top of surrounding departments. If you look at the pay scales across all the departments, we found that the contract we had passed had, not really, we were still really near the bottom of what we looked at for comparable departments. This raise puts us basically in the middle. We're not at the top. We're not at the bottom. That's where we have strived to be with our salaries for town employees. We don't think we can obviously pay as much as a Portsmouth or a Dover does for a lot of these, but we need to, pay more than some of the smallest towns pay to be competitive and continue to attract officers and firefighters and town employees.
Okay, any comments or questions? Frank?
Frank Ferraro. I was going to ask just a clarifying question, but now, James, what you said confused me. I understood that since the police were operating under a 3-year contract approved by the legislative body, that the extra payment was just an extra payment, not a raise. But you said raise. And so I guess I'm confused just by that one word. I understood that we gave them incentive pay of $10,000 each.
Yeah.
But it wasn't really a raise in salary.
No, so those salaries, their salaries would revert to, if this doesn't pass, they will revert to what was in the contract. So it would, versus this fiscal year that we're currently in, it would be a decrease for them.
Yeah.
So This formalizes that increase into the next fiscal year ahead of the next contract, full contract negotiation with the PD.
Okay, that's what I thought it was, and I appreciate that clarification, but it was just that you said that the board gave them a raise of $10,000.
Well, within this
You gave them
fiscal
a
year.
one-time payment.
Yes, a one-time thing within this fiscal year.
Yeah, that's fine. And so my clarification, I think you've just answered, is the, and I should have asked this under the budget, the budget line, as I think you said, reflect, for this current year, reflects not having that 10,000 in it.
Correct.
And this would be based off an increase from that budget line for the current year.
An increase off what was in the negotiated contract.
Yes.
So whatever
Okay.
that number would have been for fiscal year '25 per the terms of the contract, this would be in addition to that.
Thank you.
Any other questions on this? Okay, with no further questions, we'll be moving Article 7 to the ballot as written.
Motion to restrict reconsideration of Article 7?
Second?
Second.
All those in favor of restricting reconsideration? Anyone opposed? Okay, motion passes to restrict reconsideration of Article 7. We move on to Article 8, replace fire and rescue, forestry, water rescue vehicle.
I'd move Article 8 to the floor.
Second.
And Jim, will you speak to this?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Yes, I will speak to it. So this warrant article proposes to raise $90,000 for the purpose of purchasing and equipping the forestry water vehicle, with said sums to come out of the Fire Department Equipment and Apparatus Special Revenue Fund, which is at approximately, I'm looking at Ryan, $250,000 in that neighborhood. So this will have no effect on the tax rate. The current vehicle that the fire department uses for these services has been repurposed from the highway department. It is at that point now where costs to repair are far exceeding its value, and it is time to replace. This vehicle will help us help Rye in a mutual aid agreement where we also share with Rye the use of their ladder truck, which, if we were to buy one, would be approximately $1 million. So this is a very good sharing agreement that we have. This vehicle, which can also help with the water rescues. We are a seacoast community, as is Rye, and do have those requirements at times, will allow us also to extend that service to our friends to the north at a cost. If we look at it 90 versus $1 million, I think that's certainly a good investment. This article, or this purchase, was captured by the Capital Improvements Committee. I'll look to Mr. Panett if there's anything that I'm missing, and rated as I believe their #1 priority for this year, and we would strongly encourage passage. Thank you.
Okay. Any comments or questions on this one? Come on, Janet.
Janet Larson, I only had one question for clarification. I was wondering how many times in this past year this equipment was shared, either our equipment with Rye or Rye's equipment with us, just to determine the need. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. I don't have an answer for that, Madam Moderator. If someone does, I would certainly
I
be happy
see
to defer.
the chief down there's head nodding, so I think he does have an answer for this.
Thank you, Madam Moderator, and for that question. I don't have those exact numbers in front of me, but I can tell you off the top of my head, probably in excess of 20 times that we've responded to the town of Rye. And I can tell you that just this past week alone, we had Rye come in twice with their ladder truck for chimney fires. So it's been a successful agreement between both towns to be able to share equipment when one town can't afford having one piece, the other town can help out. So I don't have those exact numbers, but I can tell you at least 20 times that we've responded to Rye for water rescues last year.
Okay, thank you. Any other further questions or comments on this one? Okay, with no...
Madam Moderator, I would move to restrict reconsideration on the article that I just read, 8.
Okay, a second. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay, motion passes. And Article 8 moves to the ballot as written. We move on to Article 9, purchase of mini splits for the highway facility.
I move Article 9 to the floor.
Second. Jonathan?
Thank you. So we are looking to purchase mini splits for the highway facility. We're seeking $10,000 to raise and appropriate to install mini splits in the highway department facility with said funds from the building maintenance capital reserve fund. So this is both.
Can everyone hear Jonathan? No.
All right, here you go. So yes, so this is for the purchase of the mini split highway for the highway facility. We are looking to raise $10,000 for the purpose of purchasing and installing mini splits at the highway department facility. This was recommended by both the budget committee and the select board. So essentially, the AC condenser is at the end of its lifespan and has recommended for replacement. The mini splits are a more cost-effective option for the offices, and this will also assist in heating the office spaces, which are difficult to heat.
Okay, comments or questions on this article? None. Okay. Article 8 will move to the ballot as, Article 9 rather, will move to ballot as written.
Motion to restrict reconsideration?
Second?
Second.
All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay. Motion passes. Moving on to Article 10, road resurfacing.
Madam Moderator, I would move Article 10 for road resurfacing as it is presented to the ballot.
Second.
And Jim, will you speak to it?
I will, and my comments come appropriately after Groundhog Day, because I will say the same thing today that I have said for many years, and give enormous credit to our highway department for their work to create one of the most comprehensive road resurfacing plans in the state of New Hampshire. I say that as I have gone to every one of the New Hampshire Municipal Association annual meetings where this issue comes up every year, and there are many communities across the state that do not do road resurfacing and suddenly find themselves with 35 miles of road which they have to completely redo at a cost of, in one community, $10 million. Our plan, which is a 15-year plan, I think we're in year 14 of the plan right now, has been dutifully managed, prudently managed by our highway department, and seeks in this article to raise $300,000, of which $30,000 will come from the Municipal Transportation Improvement Capital Reserve Fund. $5, every time you register your vehicle, $5 from that registration goes to this fund to be able to offset these costs. So we will have a tax impact of $270,000 to pave roads, the ones planned. And we say planned because there are always things that come up, and I think Hub would like the flexibility just in case. But the planned roads are South Road, Shepherd's Lane, New Road, and Garrett Drive. We would certainly recommend passage of this article.
Okay, any comments or questions on road resurfacing? Come on up, Kirsten.
Just so that I'm clear, can you please say what, if this was not to pass, how much is left in the this capital reserve fund? Thank you.
If I can defer over to Ryan for the number?
No, yes.
Okay.
Currently, there's approximately $73,000.
Okay, any other comments or questions?
Madam Moderator, I would move to restrict reconsideration of Article 10.
Second.
All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay, motion passes. Moving on to Article 11, replace DPW mower.
I'll move Article 11 to the floor.
Second.
Jonathan?
All right, so this is to replace the DPW mower. The town is raising and appropriating the taxation of the sum of $17,000 for the purpose of replacing our current 2012 mower for the Department of Public Works. This has been recommended by the Select Board and the Budget Committee, and was also an item that has been identified by the CIP Committee. So this is a 2012 mower that we currently have, which is 12 years old. It's getting a lot of use, and the new primary mower that we're looking to get is going to be used on a weekly basis. The current mower is showing its age, and we've had multiple repair costs. So,
Okay, any comments or questions on the mower? Seeing no comments or questions, Article 11 moves to the ballot.
I'll move to restrict reconsideration of Article 11.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay, moving on to Article 12, contribution to the Earned Time Settlement Capital Reserve Fund.
I'll move Article 12 to the floor.
Second.
James?
This is something, I think we see this on a regular basis on the warrant. Earned Time Settlement Capital Reserve Fund is used for when employee...
Can everyone hear James?
Oh.
No?
Is that better?
Better.
This is a fund that pays for if employee leaves and has accumulated unused vacation and/or sick time that they are entitled to be bought out for because they haven't taken that time off. This fund pays for those costs. So by putting this in here and having a fund available to that, it would not impact the budget in an unexpected way if an employee left that we weren't expecting if we weren't expecting that employee to go and had a significant liability. The theoretical liability for all town employees leaving would be $417,000. A total of $198,000 of that could theoretically be payable before July 1, 2025. The balance of this fund is $74,000. So this would add money to that fund and get us closer to that potential fiscal year 25 liability. It's always more cost-effective to buy out this time at today's rate versus in the future as salaries go up. Buying out someone's time in advance, if we were to do that, also allows us to save money versus what their salaried rate would be in the future if that time were bought out at that point.
Okay, any comments or questions? Janet, come on up.
Janet Larson, just a clarifying question. How many years can an employee roll over their saved earned time? Is there a limit to that?
So it's different for non-union and union. So union personnel can save up their sick time to 90 days throughout their career. Staff personnel, it's use it or lose it. You get 12 days a year, and if you don't use it, then it goes away. You don't save it up.
It goes away at the end of the year?
Yep. And then union personnel don't hold over vacation unless it's special circumstances. But town employees can hold over vacation time up to 35 days.
Okay, 35 days into
Yep.
the new
And then,
year?
yeah, after that, the town automatically buys it so that we don't have that accrued liability growing.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Okay. Article 12 moves to the ballot as written.
Motion to restrict reconsideration of Article 12.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay, motion passes. Moving on to Article 13, contribution to the Town Revaluation Capital Reserve Fund.
I'll move Article 13 to the floor.
Second.
Jonathan, would you like to speak to it?
Yes, so this Article 13 is the contribution to the Town Reevaluation Capital Reserve Fund. So we're looking to raise $12,500 to deposit in the Town Reevaluation Capital Reserve Fund. The purpose of this fund is to allow for funding to comply with the state of New Hampshire's requirement to perform a property reevaluation every 5 years. So the town must reval every 5 years. Per state law, the cost is estimated to be around $70,000. Yearly deposits into this account will be basically proper financial planning for the future costs. So we're estimating around $12,500 per year. We should be ready to go for the next reval.
Everyone's really excited for that.
Right.
Okay. Any comments or questions around this article? Okay, with no comments or questions, Article 13 moves to the ballot.
Motion to restrict reconsideration of Article 13.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay, moving on to Article 14, contribution to the EPA Stormwater Capital Reserve Fund.
Madam Moderator, I would move Article 14 as presented to the ballot.
Second?
Second.
Jim?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Article 14 is a very important article for us. Protecting water resources, protecting the quality and quantity of our water is essential. I think that's a given. It has also been one of the biggest priorities for the town of Northampton for at least as long as I've been here, and probably a lot longer than that. This is a good news, bad news. Those are facts. Here's another fact, that we have a mandate by the EPA that we have to comply with what's called the MS4 permit. The MS4 permit is required by 44 seacoast communities that are considered to have waterways that we need to watch any pollutants that might go into those waterways. The MS4 permit, again, I'll look to our highway director, does a fantastic job managing that, complying with that. There are costs associated with doing that. What this article proposes to do is add $20,000 to the fund, for which we can continue to comply with the EPA requirement for the municipal stormwater sewer system MS4 permit. There is currently $28,000 in the fund, and $8,000, Brian, that still will be paid, still needs to be paid this year in order for us to maintain compliance. And I again urge passage.
Okay, any comments or questions on this article? Okay, seeing no comments or questions, Article 14 moves to the ballot.
Motion to restrict reconsideration of Article 14.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay, that amendment passes. Moving on to Article 15, contribution to the town land environmental remediation capital reserve fund.
I'll move Article 15 to the floor.
Jim, second?
Oh, second. Yep.
This is the town's land environmental remediation capital reserve fund. Was started based on DES requiring the town to investigate for PFAS contamination in groundwater. PFAS are chemicals that have been found in groundwater in various places in the state. And DES has instituted a program for testing and monitoring and remediating for these chemicals. And so that town falls on, the cost of that falls upon the town. In one instance we have that is still underway where we've actually received grant funding to remediate this, is for providing water to a property adjacent to the municipal complex that has been found to have PFAS in its well water. That project we've talked about a number of times at select board meetings. That's just kind of an example of the sorts of projects that we need to address with these funds. Right now, there's only $21 left in this fund. It was expended on the previous investigation that was required by DES for putting monitoring wells around the public safety and municipal complexes. So this would add $30,000 to address any future DES requirements that they impose on us to, again, test and monitor and remediate for PFAS.
Okay, comments or questions on this article? Seeing no comments or questions, Article 15 moves to the ballot.
Motion to restrict reconsideration of Article 15.
Second.
All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay, amendment passes. Motion passes. Moving on to Article 16, close the town building capital reserve fund.
Excellent.
I'll move Article 16 to the floor.
Second.
All right, so this is to close the town building capital reserve fund. So the town is looking to vote to discontinue the town building capital reserve fund created in 2006 and amended in 2018 to plan and prepare for the future town building projects we have now completed. This includes new buildings and renovations to existing buildings not covered as part of routine maintenance. So this was recommended. The reserve account was created to plan and prepare for new town buildings. The building projects have all been now completed for the foreseeable future, and there's no need to keep this account open. So we're anticipating that the amount in this fund will probably be down to $1 by the time we are actually ready to vote.
Okay. Any comments or questions on this article? Seeing no comments or questions, Article 16 moves to the ballot.
Motion to restrict reconsideration of Article 16.
Second? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay, moving on to Article 17, adopt the Northampton Community Choice Aggregation Plan.
I'll move Article 17 to the floor.
Second.
James?
Community Choice Aggregations is a program that was instituted by the state in RSA 53. What this does is it allows communities to have a vote to elect as to whether they would like their town to seek to enter into what they call an aggregation plan for residents who are currently on default service with the electric utility. Default service means that you, if people are familiar with their electric bills, you have basically two significant items on your electric bill. One is for the delivery of the transmission and delivery of the electricity, which all goes to, in our case, Eversource. And another is for the actual energy involved. That's the energy charge. And some folks may be familiar with the fact that you can shop for a competitive energy supplier that will deliver your energy, and they will show up on your utility bill as the supplier of your electricity alongside Eversource as the company that delivers that electricity. So individuals can shop right now for a competitive supplier. What this does is it allows the town to go out and shop on behalf of residents, and if they find an attractive competitive plan, they can choose to elect that plan for all the residents who are currently on default service. This would not affect anyone who already has a competitive supplier, but it would put anyone who's getting their electricity from Eversource into the plan. It's an opt-out plan. If you don't want to participate, you will have the option to opt out of the agreement. But what it does is it provides sort of pricing power, negotiating power for the town to collectively go out and find a better competitive electric rate. I think folks are familiar with the volatility and high prices of electricity in the last few years. So what this does is allow the town to put a plan in front of the PUC, the Public Utilities Commission, which would approve the plan, which would enable the town to then go out and shop for competitive electric rates that they then could provide to residents. So this is a vote to adopt this plan and enable the town to actually go out and do that. There would be if this were approved, there would be a process by which the plan, which we have reviewed in a number of select board meetings and had an energy aggregation committee work with the company, the consulting company that is engaged in this, that has experience with competitive supply agreements and negotiating these type of aggregation programs on the behalf of towns. The plan would then go forward to the Public Utilities Commission. Once they approved that plan, we could then go out and shop for competitive rates. There would then be an education program for which there would be mailings and public meetings around the program, so people would be informed of what the options were. There can be more than one price within that agreement. If people are aware of shopping for electricity, you can choose different plans at different price points for different terms. You might choose a plan that's 100% green energy versus 50% or 20% green energy. So we can have multiple price points that people can choose, and as I said, people could also choose not to participate as well. So there'll be a customer service line that people can call. There'll be mailings, as I said. So it will allow for more choice, and hopefully we can find utility rates that are more competitive and lower priced for residents to make available to them.
Comments or questions on this? Come on up, Janet.
Just clarification. Will the town buildings and the library be included in this plan and then opt out if they prefer not to?
Yes, the town can also be a customer on these plans. Right now, the town has competitive supply agreements with third parties. I don't know the name of them off the top of my head. I believe the library has a plan. The town has a plan for the town buildings. So we would look to participate in this as well, assuming we can find an attractive rate.
Okay, thank you.
Come on up.
Is there an assurance that the town's rate is
Oh,
going...
I'm sorry. Can I just have you state your full name?
Tim Faley, 3
Thanks,
North
Tim.
Road. Is there an assurance that the town's rate will be equal to the residents' rate, or will the town municipality buildings, police buildings, will they get a better rate for bringing in all the town, and then the town people have to pay more, essentially?
No, if the town participates along with residents, we have the same rate. Commercial customers would have the same rate as residential customers, but also, as I said, residential customers who don't want to participate or think they could go out and find a better rate on their own certainly have the ability to opt out, and so it doesn't restrict your ability to choose a competitive supplier, but what it does is allow us to provide the competitive supply option to folks who might not be aware of or might not be comfortable with going out and shopping for a competitive supply.
Any other comments or questions?
Yeah, Jim Avalon, Three River. I like the idea, I do, but how much pull does Northampton have with just so few residents? I could see Manchester or Nashua getting a better rate? Is that,
It's actually can be pretty significant. There are many towns even smaller than ours where in states, Massachusetts is a good example. They've had this program for a few years. The company we're working with, Colonial Power, has 200 plus towns, many of which are smaller than ours. And but by working with them, they can actually go out, they're working with multiple towns, so they're actually aggregating us. They can aggregate us with other towns as well. So it's a fairly dynamic thing where they can go out and get a competitive rate. And certainly, as a town with, hundreds or, there's probably a couple of thousand of utility customers in Northampton, it's certainly more competitive than, say, going out as an individual looking for competitive rates.
so would we be joining with other small towns then?
Not as a group, but I'm saying that we are working with, Colonial Power will go out and look for the competitive rates on our behalf. We're not going to be negotiating with power suppliers ourselves. They work with us. They helped us draft the agreement because they know the PUC rules and the RSA. So they work with us to draft. They did a couple presentations at board meetings, select board meetings. So they work with us, and because they work with multiple communities, they have kind of the leverage to go out and seek, very the most favorable terms that possible.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Come on up.
Hi, Charlie Triarchis, Morgan Lane. Just a quick question as a follow-up. For the third-party assistance, is there another line item, a budget item to pay for these consulting firms or third parties to go and do the due diligence on this service?
No, we don't. They are paid a 1/10 if and when we engage in an agreement, and which is optional to us. If they go out and shop and find rates that we don't think are competitive, we don't have to choose to do it. But should we choose to do it and enroll default service customers into that program, there's a 1/10 of 1 cent charge that goes to the consultant. So we don't pay them any fee unless we
do the
actually
business.
engage in the program.
Great, thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, seeing that there are no other comments or questions, we're going to move Article 18 to the ballot.
17. I'll move to restrict Article 17 from reconsideration.
Second.
All in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay, seeing as there's no other business we need to address today, this meeting is...
We have one more.
We do?
We do.
What did I miss? Oh, I did. Sorry, I always miss one. Article 18, modify elderly exemption from property tax, and a big one at that.
I'll move Article 18 to the floor.
Second.
Jim?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. So in the last legislative session, the House, Senate, and Governor approved an amendment to New Hampshire RSA 7239:A, which allows for elderly exemptions from property taxes. This allowed for an increase on the exemptions there. The current range right now from 65 to 74 is $120,000. This increases to $170,000. From 75 to 79, currently, we are at $160,000. The increase in this legislation takes us up to $225,000. And at 80 plus, it was $200,000 and now moves up to $275,000. We're trying, of course, the intent, which you might assume, is to allow those folks who qualify here with to be able to age in place a little more easily by having some relief from their property taxes. They need only go to the town website. I'm looking over at, I think I'm looking over at Ryan, but it would go over to Scott Marsh, who is our assessor. There's an elderly exemption worksheet, which anybody can go fill out, but it hasn't been updated yet. I wanted to bring that up because if you go to the town website right now, obviously we haven't approved this. This has to be approved by each and every community. If for some reason the town of Northampton rejects this warrant article, what you see on the website will be the existing exemptions. So if we do approve this article, those exemptions will be changed on this form to include the new higher limits.
Okay, comments and questions on this one. Come on up.
Lori Cotter, 168 Mill Road. I know that, just a quick question, the forms have already been mailed out to the residents that have, so are those, those particular forms we don't fill out?
I might,
I believe the assessor has just sent out forms that are verifying that you're still eligible for elderly or veterans exemptions. I don't believe it's attached to this article.
Okay,
It's
so,
just part of his normal process. Every 5 years, he needs to verify your information.
right, and Ms. Moderator, one more question. The excess, it says not in excess of 190 value for the person's net assets. Sometimes when they plan for the future, they have some money that's available to them that they live off of the interest. Is there any way to change that number from 190,000 to a little bit higher? I didn't know if we have that ability.
I don't, this is specified by the state, right?
this is statutory, yes.
Yeah, this
It's
is a statutory.
so that number is pretty set.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
But Madam Moderator, may I go back to your first comment? The forms need to be completed by April 1st.
Right.
So those forms have gone out. We would encourage anybody who is filing this to go ahead and do that. I'm glad you brought that up. Should this article pass, I believe it goes into effect immediately, and so the new numbers would go into effect. But please, I should maybe clarify that when you get this form or when you print this form out, do fill it out and send it in so that you have complied with the filing deadline. So
Right.
Thank you for bringing that up.
And one comment, I want to thank the Select Board for looking at this to keep older people in their homes. They bought them for $65,000, and now they can't afford to live in them because of the valuation. So thank you very much for looking at that.
Any other comments or questions?
Amy Buckland-Faley, 3 North Road. I had a question more about the to qualify on that one. I think because I'm big on protecting the elders in this community and them staying in their homes as long as they possibly can. Who would I ask about the to qualify for that? How to change like that end of it? Like the requirements, like your income, your assets, like she was saying, like some of these elders are on very fixed incomes. So they're not even like qualifying in the beginning, kind of.
So again, this is set by statute.
Okay.
We can have a discussion about experiences you've had where maybe that adjustment should be reviewed again, and I would be happy to do that with you. But currently, this is set in statute, and I would encourage you or anybody else to get in touch with the town, with our assessor, to walk through all of those numbers so that you are clear on it. But we always look to see how we can create a benefit for somebody to continue to live in their home.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Jim, can I just clarify on that? Were you also offering that, you mean as a state rep to change the law? Is that what you were offering?
Well, I'm not going to offer that as an individual state rep to
No,
do that,
but
yeah.
yeah, is that what we were talking about?
Yeah.
From a legislature
Right, from a
standpoint
legislative
versus
side,
a
yeah.
town standpoint?
Correct.
Okay,
Thank
just wanted to clarify that. Thanks.
Is it that easy for a state
Yeah,
rep to
but-
change the law? Because if that's all we have to do.
Okay, I
By
just wanted to
acclamation.
make sure that he was speaking as, in that regard, as opposed to town.
Janet Larson, I just wanted to clarify that this says it does exclude the value of the person's residence.
Correct.
Just so people note that. It is not included in your net assets.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions in regards to this? Okay.
Madam Moderator, I would move, well, I
Go
don't know if I
ahead.
have to on this one, but I would move I would move to restrict reconsideration on Article 18.
Second.
All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay, now I can actually say that seeing as there's no additional business today, this meeting is officially closed. But a reminder, school deliberative session is Wednesday night, 7 p.m., this same room. Voting on the official ballot will be March 12th, 8 to 7 p.m., and that will be over in the gym. Okay? Thanks very much for coming today.